Hi everyone! Today I want to share a fancy breakfast idea that you can make at home. It is a bacon and egg galette. What is a galette, you ask? A galette is basically a puff pastry that is stuffed with anything you want and baked in the oven. And it sounds fancy because it's French. You can make this for Christmas brunch. For some of you, it might already be Christmas Eve when you're watching this. And it is especially adaptable if you want to make this for a big group. You can just make the onions and bacon in advance, and I will talk more about that as we make the recipe. So we are going to caramelize some onions in the oven. You can do this on the stove, but I just found that doing it in the oven is a more hands-off approach, and it allows you to do other things like prepare other foods that you might be doing for dinner, or I don't know, go watch a TV show. We're going to roughly chop some onions and place them onto a parchment-lined baking sheet. I'm only going to use up half the space on the baking sheet and use the other half to cook the bacon later. Drizzle a little bit of oil into it and give it a mix, then spray it out into a thin layer. Season with a pinch of salt, cover it loosely with some foil, and we're going to pop it in the oven for 25 minutes at 375 degrees Fahrenheit. When the time is up, take out the baking tray and remove the foil cover. We're going to mix up the onions a bit and then flatten it out into an even layer. Tuck every piece of onion in and make sure there aren't any strays or they will burn in the oven. Increase the oven temperature to 425 degrees Fahrenheit and then put the onions back in for another 30 minutes. We're going to mix it up a little bit halfway through. In the meantime, we can chop up some chives for garnish. For the bacon, pile it up and slice into pieces. We're going to place it onto a sheet of foil and make sure the bacon is separated and spread out. Fold in the sides of the foil so that any fat rendered from the bacon won't leak anywhere. When there is about 15 minutes left for the onions, we can add the bacon to our sheet. We're also going to give the onions a little mix as well. My bacon was looking nice and crispy at this point, but I wanted my onions to caramelize a little bit more, so I took out the bacon, but I left the onions in there for another 10 minutes. Tear off a little corner from the foil to create a spout and then pour out all the bacon fat. So my onions are looking nice and caramelized. We're going to remove it from the oven and start assembling our galette. Today we're going to use very simple store-bought puff pastry which you can find in the frozen aisles. Just leave it in the fridge overnight and allow the puff pastry to thaw. You can also thaw it on your counter, but just make sure the puff pastry is still cold when you put it in the oven. I'm going to cut it in half and then I'm going to grease up my parchment paper on a new baking tray and move the pastry sheets over. It's easier to assemble the galette on the baking tray itself instead of moving it after you've added eggs and all the other elements to it. Assembling is pretty simple. Simply spoon over the onions but create a well in the center for the eggs. Then add in the bacon and fold in the puff pastry like so. Press down on the corners to make sure it is sealed in. Push the onions and bacons even closer to the edge to make more room for your eggs. Then slowly crack in the eggs. I have some eggs that I beat up here and we're just going to brush some onto the edges of the pastry. Put the tray in the oven and bake for 15 minutes at 400 degrees Fahrenheit. So as you can see, the galette is really easy to assemble. You can make the caramelized onions in advance. They can keep in the fridge for up to 4 days. You can also make the bacon in advance. And then on Christmas morning, all you have to do is assemble it and put it in the oven. So our galette is now ready. Take it out, season with some salt, garnish with the chives we chopped up earlier, and add a couple twists of black pepper. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Don't forget to check out the blog for the written version of this recipe. Smash that like button if you enjoyed it, and don't forget to subscribe as well. I'll see you guys in the next video.